Good evening, gentlemen. Amud Aleph. Amru Rabbanan Hamed Rab Papa. Few lines from the top. Third of the way down. Okay. Sorry, no. We say that the ox is similar to the case regarding himself. That's what we said earlier, that they have the same malachot. Mishnah, it says, the ox created embarrassment is patur, but a man who creates embarrassment is a chayav. Right? If the ox is similar to himself, it has to be the same thing like himself, that what he intended to embarrass. How would you have a case where the animal intended to embarrass? The Gemara says, it's a case where the ox intended to injure. You're still chayav. Meaning, the same way a person, if let's say the person just has in mind, he wants to hurt someone, but he doesn't care about the guy getting embarrassed from it, is he chayav for embarrassment? Yes. So to an animal that charges and wants to injure, he's also chayav. You might think he's chayav, but he's not. Okay, our Mishnah referring to the case of the fire is where he did it b'shogeg, the fire by mistake on Shabbat. That's why he doesn't have to pay. Same halacha according to Behizkiah, make adam make behema. Pasuk makes a comparison. One who kills someone, he's chayav, mitan, does not have to pay damages, and one who kills an animal pays damages because he's not getting killed. Just like in the case of an animal, there's no difference between on purpose or a mistake. Whether it was intentional or not intentional, there's a difference whether you intended to do something or you didn't intend to do something, or you intended to do it but it was a mistake on who it was or what it was, etc. So there's a difference. There's a difference whether it was upward or downward, right? Usually if someone is going down from the ladder, he's chayav. Going up the ladder, he's patur. The patur man, in all these cases, you are patur from money. And then the chayav man, but in the pasuk where you are, right? So sorry, all these cases, the pasuk is not referring to that you're patur from money. Rather, you're chayav in money, but you patur from mitah. Money. Regarding the person who kills a person, there's no difference between on purpose or a mistake. Was by mistake, intentional or unintentional. Whether it was upward or downward hit, you're always chayav in damages. Whether you're patur from money in these scenarios because you're chayav mitah. Right, so according to that case, you're still chayav. You're still chayav to pay money according to Hizkiah. Can you really tell me that our Mishnah is by mistake in our Mishnah? But the problem is, our Mishnah clearly says that you are patur from money because you're chayav mitah, not because it was a certain way, it was by mistake, not on purpose. It wasn't because it was by mistake or on purpose. The Mishnah is clearly saying that you're patur from paying money because of kimleb d'rabamina, because you're chayav mitah, and nothing to do, and that's why you're patur. Since in the case, if it was on purpose, he'd be chayav mitah. What case would it be? We're burning something on purpose for the ashes. That's a destructive for constructive purpose, like we said yesterday. But over here, if it was by mistake, for example, he didn't realize it was Shabbat, he'd be patur from payment as well, even though he's not chayav mitah. Okay, Mishnah. An ox was chasing after another ox, and the ox that was chased was found to be damaged later on. This one saying the guy who got damaged said, your ox was chasing my ox. He's damaged. Do the math yourself. He damaged my ox. He says, no, it wasn't my shore. My shore was just playing around. Your ox ran into a rock or whatever and hurt itself. The person who's trying to extract money has to bring the proof. So the ox that got damaged, since he doesn't have proof that it actually happened, he has to bring the proof that his ox got hit by this guy's ox. Otherwise, the guy's patur. It's a famous Gemara that says, you see a guy chasing after another guy with a knife, into a house and you walk in after them and you see the guy on the floor and the other guy holding a bloody knife, you cannot assume that he killed him because you didn't see the action happen. Okay. If two oxen were belonging to two different people were being chased by a single ox, and then they were found to, and the oxen that were chased found not to be damaged. The owner of one of the chasing animals says, "Yours did it. Yours did it." And the other one saying, "No, yours did it." All right, so two oxen were chasing after a single ox, and one of that one was damaged. So then each one can say, "No, it was you. No, it was you. No, it was you." Each one can blame the other. They're both patur. But both of them belong to one man. They're both chayav. Right, so meaning, if we know that it was an animal that did it, right? Let's say we saw an animal hit it, but we're not sure which one it is, and it belongs to two different guys. So unless you could prove which one did it, they're patur. But if both of them belong to one guy, then obviously you're chayav. If one ox was large and one was small, and the damagee said the large one did the damage, and the damager says no, the small ox did the damage, right? And they both belong to the same guy, right? So the reason why it makes a difference over here is referring to because of property value. Right? We said that you pay half the value of the damaging ox. So the owner is saying it was the smaller one. The damagee is saying was the bigger one. He wants to get a bigger payout. Or if one say, let's say one of them was a tam, one was muad. The damagee is saying the muad did the damage, and therefore he could collect from real estate property. And he says, no, my tam did it. You're only getting cash and half cash. If you want to extract more or the better, you have to prove that's the case. Okay. Two oxen got damaged. One was large, one was small. And there was two damagers as well. One big, one small. And he's the damage is saying your big one hurt my big one, and your small one hit my small one. That gives him the biggest payout. My small ox hurt your big one, and my big one hurt your small one. Right? So therefore, if it's since the damagee wants to get the larger one hitting the larger one, that means he'll collect full heavy payouts. The damagers, however, saying that the smaller ox damaged the bigger one, and the bigger one damaged the smaller one, and therefore only half of the larger one can be collected from the small ox. Right? Makes sense. So therefore, he's limiting his payout because if the smaller one did the damage to the bigger one, then he's cutting it in half of the smaller one. And if the bigger one did the damage to the smaller one, and the smaller one's worth $500 and the big one's worth $3,000, he's also limiting it. They're both trying to capitalize on each of them. So, and then similar case, like I said earlier, another scenario. Echad tam ve'echad gadol, or for the case is one tam, one muad. Sorry, echad tam ve'echad muad. Hanizak umar muad hizik gadol b'tam b'takatan. And then the nizak is saying, the damage is saying, your muad hit my big one, and the tam hit the small one, right, to get the biggest payout. Hamazik umar lo. Ki ela tam gadol muad katan. He says no, the opposite. The damagee has to prove it in order to get a bigger payout. Mar b'chia baraba. The Mishnah's, if you want to say that this is the truth, then the Mishnah is insinuating halukim alav havero sumchus amar. Right? The sumchus's friends or other rabbis disagree with what he said. That what mamon hamutal b'safek hokin. Generally, when you have a safek with money, you have to split it. Right? So if there's two ways of looking at it. Do I have to prove that this happened, or do we have money suspended in the air, and therefore we have to see, is it mine or yours? Let's just split it down the middle. Right? So there's two ways of looking at it. Is it like, if you want more money, prove it? Or is it, there's safek money in the air? Do I owe you $500, $200? Let's split it down the middle. Okay. Amar Simchus afilu bari ubari. Did Simchus even say that it's talking about a scenario where each litigant is sure what they're saying? Meaning, this guy saying, I saw this happen. This guy saying, I saw this happen. Not that, oh, it could have been or could have been, Bari means you're certain, you're positive, you're 100% sure. It's 100% factual in your brain, right? Therefore, you might think that the only time the Chachamim would disagree with Sumchus is if they're not sure. Like, oh, I don't know who did it. Prove that you didn't do it. Maybe in that case you split. Would they agree to Sumchus if both of them were to say for sure yes and for sure yes? The more it says, why did Rabbi Chia bar Abba assume that our Mishnah is referring to body and body? Maybe it's talking about a case where they were saying that it's possible this and possible that, not for sure this, for sure that. It possibly your animal hit my animal, or possibly it was a muad and not a tam, etc. The more says, Tani, we have Mishnah. Ze omer shorcha hezik, ze omer lo ki. Right? The Gemara says over there specifically in our Mishnah, it's trying to bring a proof that the wording of our Mishnah shows that he says your ox did the damage, and the other guy says no, it wasn't. Right? Therefore, it's seemingly it's talking about our Mishnah is referring to a case where it's body and body, 100% positive and 100% positive, and not talking about safek. Right? There's a difference. If the guy says your ox hurt my ox, and I say, who says? Maybe not. Or if I say no, he didn't. I know he didn't. Right? There's a difference. Bari is the second one where I'm positive and certain. The first one, safek. Well, I don't know. I have no idea. So the Gemara says the fact that our Mishnah said that the guy said no shows that he's certain. The Gemara says, right, so if you're telling me the first part of the Mishnah is where the guy is certain, and the second part of the Mishnah is certain. But then the second part of the Mishnah says, if one of them was a big animal and small, and the damage he's saying the big one, the large one did the damage, and the damager said the small one did it. Or one time one muad, nizek omer muad hizik, v'hamazik omer lo ki al tam hizik, and the damager is saying no, the tam did the damage. Right? So now we just quoted the Mishnah that in these cases of Safek, you would say that he has to bring a proof. Which sounds like it, that the damagee can't bring a proof. Nema to have a tuf to the Rabbi Bar Natan. It shall bring a proof against Rabbi Bar Natan. Why? So I skipped the line. If he did not bring a proof, Shakil Kidamar Mazik, he has to accept the Mazik's plan, right? So if he says, for example, the case of the Muad and Tam, he says, your Muad hurt my animal. The other guy says, no, it's my Tam. So the Mishnah said, bring a proof, which sounds like if he can't prove it, he has to accept the Tam damages and not the Muad damages. If that's the case, it's a proof against Rabbi Natan, Rabbi Bar Natan. In a case where a guy said that you owe me wheat, and the guy said, I don't owe you wheat, but I do owe you barley. He's patur even from paying the barley. Right? So now, over here, it's not the case. Because if he says, you're Tam, I'm Muad, and the guy claims the opposite, and he does not have to pay, and he still has to pay Tam, he's not completely patur. It's against Rabbi Bar Natan, because Rabbi Bar Natan says that you'd be patur completely if you admit to something else. The Gemara says, Ella bari v'shema. Rather, Rabbi Bar Natan's case is referring to, in his case, is refers where one guy says, I know that this happened, and the other guy answers back in Safek. Against Rabbi Chia bar Abba's understanding of our Mishnah. The Gemara says, Deka'amar bari man, deka'amar shemar man. Who's saying for sure and who's saying by mistake? Let's talk about it. Inema, deka'amar nizak bari v'ka'amar mazik shema. If we're talking about the damagee saying, I saw your mu'ad animal did it, and the damager is saying, well, maybe it's my tam. That's still a question against Rabbi Bar Natan, because he has to bring a proof, and if he doesn't bring a proof, then he is messed over. Rather, the Mishnah is referring to a case where the damagee is saying, I think it was your mu'ad, and the damager is saying, nope, I know it was my tam. Therefore, you have to reestablish the first part of Mishnah, where the damagee is saying, perhaps your ox did it, and the damager is saying, no, maybe it was a rock. And Simchus would say, in this case, that maybe you have to divide it, right? We said earlier, is it dividing or is it bring a proof? Over here, Simchus would say you have to divide it. So that it was necessary for the Mishnah to tell you that they argued against Simchus, right? So now, what the Gemara is asking is, it's a question. He's saying, if you're bringing this whole Mishnah to tell me that in the case where the damagee is not certain and the damager is certain, would the Mishnah need to teach me this halacha against sumchus, meaning sumchus says you always split it. Oh, let's bring a Mishnah to teach you against sumchus. It would not need to bring me a case against sumchus because this is obviously a case where sumchus would say splitting. So therefore, if this Mishnah is if this case is an open shut case of hamosim chavero alav, then it would be unnecessary Mishnah to prove it. If the damager is not sure, that if the damager is sure and the damagee is not sure, right? So therefore, we're still stuck on the Mishnah's case of explaining who's certain and who's not certain. Gemara says la. Seifan nizak shema umbazik bari. The second part of the Mishnah with the animal and the tam and the muad is referring to where the damagee said maybe and the damager said for sure. Resha with the rock or the animal, nizak bari umazik bari shema. It's the opposite. The damagee said, "I know it was your ox," and the damager said, "No, maybe it was a rock." One second. The first case is not comparable to the second case, meaning the first case, for example, was talking about where the guy might not be chayav at all. It wasn't my animal. Maybe it could have been a rock. And the second case is referring to where we know you're chayav, it's just a matter of how much. Was it a tam animal that did damage, or was it a muad animal that did damage? Where it says Amri, therefore he says Amri barish v'shema shema ubari chad notahi. We say no, really, same halacha. Whether or not one is positive and one is certain, or vice versa, depending on who it is, it's the same thing. Bari shema ubari tle milenihu. However, if you have a positive and a positive, or a safek and a positive, those are different cases. So if it's talking about a case where if you have a guy who's safek and positive or safek, then that's the same halacha. However, if you have a case where they're both positive and one case, that's one case, or if you have a case that is safek and bari and safek, positive and not and uncertain, that is two different cases. So the second part of the Mishnah must be talking about a case where it's positive and uncertain, and the first part of the Mishnah has to be the same thing because you can't have two different halachot. Okay, interesting. Ufa, Mar Babanatan. We said this earlier. If I say that you owe me wheat and you admit that you owe me barley, you're patur even from the barley. Mike Mashmalan, what's the chidush? Different Mishnah. Different Mishnah, straight up says the same exact thing. Oh, big chidush, Rabbi Natan. We have the same exact thing elsewhere. Mar says, from there, you might think, maybe you're patur from paying the value of the wheat. But you have to pay for the barley, right? So it says patur from wheat. Maybe to pay barley. The patur legamre. Therefore, the Baba Natan says, no, you're patur from everything, not even the barley. If two damaging oxen where if there was two damaging oxen, one large, one small, and it hits a large and small oxen as well. Right? We said over there to bring a proof, which sounds like that if you don't bring the proof, you have to pay what the damager is saying. You have to pay the half price or whatever it is. Now we're bringing our Mishnah against Rabbi Natan. How come if he's admitting half of it, he should be batur? The Gemara says Ra'uli tol ve'en. It's referring to a case where he's able to take payment if he brings proof, but if he doesn't have proof, he's patur. Right? So we said, oh, it sounds like if he can't bring proof, he only accepts half of the payments of the damager. The Gemara says, no, not necessarily. If he doesn't, he could get full payment if he brings proof, but if he doesn't bring proof, we agree to Rabbi Natan that he is patur. But the Gemara says, 1 second. Elsewhere we see our Mishnah clearly says that you do pay small for the big and big for the small. Right? Not completely patur. Gemara says this fast. That's referring to where the guy already seized the funds or the oxen as payment. Right? So therefore, since he already seized it in his property, we can't rip it out. But if he didn't do it, he'd be patur. Tanan. You have a tam and muad. The damagee is saying the muad hit my big one, the tam hit my small one. Damager is saying no, the tam hurt my big one, and the muad hurt the small one. And we said have to bring a proof. But that sounds like if you don't bring proof, you have to bring you have to pay the tam for the big and like the damager is saying according to Baranatash Patur. Where says same answer as before. If he brings proof, he gets full payment. If not, he gets nothing. But it says clearly that you do accept payment for partial. Where it says Tapas, again, same answer. It's only if he grabbed it already. Next part. If both oxen belong to the same guy, both of them are chayav. This sounds like that if there's two tam oxen the damage, he can accept payment on any which one. Right? How does that make sense? Meaning, if let's say the two oxen are chasing after one oxen and they damage, we don't know who it is, but since they belong to the same guy, you could say you're automatically chayav. What does that mean? That means if I lose the animal or the animal dies, which would make me patur by a tam, I would still be chayav because you could collect from the other one. That's not fair. It's referring to they're talking about where they're mu'ad, and therefore you have to pay from the property anyhow. So it doesn't make a difference about the oxen. Where it says imu adin but that doesn't make sense because the next part of the Mishnah says, "Hey, achad gadol ve'achad katan, hanizak umer gadol hizik, hamizik umer gadol katan hizik." Damagee says, "I want the large one to damage, not the small one," and the damager saying, "No, the small one did it." To bring a proof. But if it's a muad, it doesn't make a difference. Right? The only time it makes a difference on who did the damage is if it's a tam and because you want the bigger ox to pay half its value, and therefore you're saying, "Oh, the big guy did it. I want half of that." But if it's a muad, you're getting paid real estate for your damaged animal. So why would it make a difference in the second case if it's talking about the case of muad? Right, dohak-ish type of answer. No, the second case is talking about tam, but the first case is talking about muad. If the Mishnah is referring to muad, Hayavim says the oxen are chayav. Chayav gavra mebarle. Right? We said that the animals were chayav, meaning you have to pay the value of the animals, which only happens to a tam. So if it was a tam, the person should be a chayav. If it's a muad, the person should be chayav. But two, additionally, my shneim. What do you mean they're both chayav? And then it can't be both chayav if there's a muad. Rather, the whole Mishnah has to be tumat tam. But Rabbi Akiva, it's according to Mishnah. He holds that, right, we had this before, that damager and damagee are now partners in the damaging ox. And the reason why the both oxen are chayav is because they're both here. Because the damager can't say, "Oh, it's none of mine. We know it was one of them." But let's say one of them went missing, they're both not there. The damager can tell the damagee, bring a proof for me that this ox that I have left was the one who did it, and then I'll pay you. But if we know it was one of two and both of them are there, he can't push them off. He can't say, "Oh, prove to me." No, we know one of them did it. It doesn't matter which one. But if he's missing one of them died or one of them got lost, he can tell the guy, "Prove it to me, not the other one." Right?